So who you are. What else? What do you want? What do you want? That is the first thing someone's gonna, they open your letter, they see who you are, and they want to know what do you want. Remember, concise. Concise. Last, why? Why do you want it? Why do you need it? They're going to want to know why. You can't just ask for something and not tell the person why. Last thing, let me make some room here. At the end of a letter, everyone wants to be thanked. Everyone wants to be thanked. Hopefully you had some of this. Hopefully you had some of this. Let's move on to the last one. This is going to be the longest one. The formatting is going to be the longest one. I wanted you to brainstorm about formatting, but we are going to right now get right into what a letter should look like. We're going to start talking exactly what a letter should look like. All right, we're going to talk about the format of a business letter. That does not mean you have to write this out. This is not notes, because either on my website or on Mrs. Seday's or Mr. Scott's website, you will find this document. They will give this to you. This is already being provided. So actually, if you could find this document now, it's going to be called Format of a Business Letter, and this is going to be one of the first things you see. And you're going to find a number 1, which is called heading. So I need you to open that, and beside this screen, push this screen to the left, and then on the right-hand side, open this up, please. Do that now. Now that you have it open up, I want you to go to number 1. Number 1 means it's the first thing that's going to appear on your business letter. Meaning that if you have your business letter, it's going to be at the very top, right there. Again, you don't have to write this down. Actually, right below this page, there's a diagram showing you where everything goes. So just bear with me, let me explain as I go. But right at the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to have the heading. The heading is your address and the date. That's what's there. Here's an example. There's an example. Notice a couple things. Notice that A, your name is nowhere there. The person's name isn't there. It's just their address and the date. And notice that the date comes last, and recognize where the commas are. This should be something that was taught to you in grade 6, but if you've forgotten, when you use dates, there's a comma, February 3rd, comma, 2004, Regina, comma, Saskatchewan. And then postal code as well. Postal code on the same line. Postal code on the same line. That's heading 1. Let's talk inside address. Inside address comes next. So again, if that's 1, 2 is right below it. 2 is about 4 lines below it, in fact. So if you want to type in right now, you can even put it in blue or some other color, but type in that there's 4 lines between the heading and the now inside address. And you'll notice what it says. If you read it you should have this beside your screen right now. It says the inside address does contain the name of the recipient. So, name, address, etc. All right? I have an example here. Example, Sam Hunt, director, the knitting mill, and then it has his address. You'll notice that it also has his title, Sam Hunt, comma, director. It's often polite and professional to add someone's title if they have one. So you'd put, if you were sending one to Mr. Lonsberry, you'd put his full name, Daryl Lonsberry, comma, principal. That would be polite. If you were sending it to a member of parliament, you would say Stephen Harper, comma, Prime Minister of Canada. Or Prime Minister of Canada, comma, Stephen Harper. Or something of that sort. And if you're sending it to a business address, you'd put what business it was. If you were sending a letter to the Calgary Science School, you wouldn't just put the Calgary Science School address, you'd also say Calgary Science School. So, Daryl Lonsberry, comma, principal, Calgary Science School, and then the address. Excellent. Number 3. Again, you're going to leave about 2 lines. You're going to leave about 2 lines between this inside address and what comes next, which is our salutation. The salutation. This is the classic part of a letter. This is where you know a business letter has started because it starts with dear. Dear Mr., dear Mrs., dear Miss. Dear Mr. Smith, Miss Black, Mrs. Brown, Miss. Some people have asked what's the difference between Miss, Mrs., and Miss. Most of you by now know that this one means married. Mrs. means married. Miss means unmarried. And Miss means under the age of 18. Means someone who isn't yet of an age where it would be expected they are married. It's very old school, so we tend not to use it. Sir or madam should be only used if you're referring to someone of authority. Someone who you're not quite sure their name maybe, or they're actually a lord, and then you'd call them sir. To whom it may concern should be something you use very infrequently. Write that in, please. Please type that in. Right now, write that underneath of it. Do not use if possible. Don't use this if you can avoid it. Now, think about why that might be. Why should you use one of these instead? Why should you use one of those instead of to whom it may concern? I actually want you to think about it for a second. Take a moment. Why? What if you were receiving a business letter? To whom it may concern. Right away that tells you that they didn't know who to send it to, that in fact you might not be the right person. Maybe you're not the person that this should be sent to. They don't know. Or they didn't bother to look up what your name really was. They didn't bother to look into who you were. They just sent you a random letter. If they actually know who you are, if they actually care about it, they'll find out who you are and they'll send it to you. And that way you know it's yours. That way you know it's relevant to you. So if you're sending somebody a letter, you should find out who to send it to. If you were applying for a job at a restaurant as a busboy, or a bus girl, sorry. If you're applying for a job at a restaurant, then you should find out who's the one who's going to be reading this. Is it the manager? Probably. So you should put the manager's name. If you have multiple managers, maybe put multiple managers' names. That is acceptable. To say, Dear Mrs. Brown or Mr. Black. Put that in there. Because then it shows the recipient that you've spent the time to do some research. That you know who this is going to. You're actually talking to people, not to some entity. Use that very infrequently. All right. Number 4. Number 4 is the body. This is the main part. This is the part where you're going to put in all your information. You'll notice that it says to be concise. If you want, circle that, underline it, whatever you need. But please, actually be concise. In the body, there are 3 paragraphs. There are going to be 3 paragraphs in the body, or at least 3 paragraphs. We're going to talk about those in a moment. But right now, I just want you to understand that everything else so far is just about formatting. The body is where you stage your argument. This is going to be the most important part of your letter. This is the part you don't shortchange. All right. I would love it if you read this through. I'm not going to read it with you because that's a waste of my time and your listening time. You can read this. You're in grade 9. Number 5, surprisingly not the last. Number 5 is the closing This is where you say yours truly, sincerely. This is where it appears at the bottom of the letter, directly under the body. Only the first word in the closing should be capitalized. So, yours truly, sincerely. If you're sending it to your grandmother, you could say much love.